I have you now.
They want to mess with my droid. They're going to pay for it.
This is the way.
You may fire when ready.
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
The way you're fighting, you wouldn't have lasted long.
Hello there.
Kenobi!
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Star Wars fans ate it up this week. It was an awesome episode of Mando. We got the Young Jedi Adventure shorts. But we wrapped up the whole Season 2 of Bad Batch. And what a wrap-up it was. We're here to cover the last 4 episodes of Season 2. Season 2's episodes 13 through 16. There's a lot to get through. I would say none of these episodes were filler. Some people said that episode 13 was a little filler. I'm going to rebuff that right here on this podcast because I don't think it was. The show had its ups and downs, and we're going to talk about that. It was a little bit of a mixed bag, but we got to the station on time. We have a huge setup for Season 3 that I think they're going to announce at Star Wars Celebration. And, we're kissing our Saturday morning cartoon goodbye for the whole year. I mean, we've got Young Jedi Adventures, the TV show, coming up, but that's geared towards young children. We will not be covering that in depth like we have Bad Batch. And Star Wars animation is pretty much done for the whole year. We're only on through live action, but it was a really, really nice time while it was here. Visions, we're going to get on May 4th, but we're not going to be getting a serialized show coming out every week like Bad Batch until probably Bad Batch Season 3. So, here to talk about Bad Batch, last 4 episodes, and Season 2 all together is the summit scientist himself, Colin Archer.
Hey, Carter. Man, Bad Batch, another home run by Disney and Lucasfilm. In totality, the whole thing, I think, was great, given the context of being that's a child show. But these last ones, very emotional, very impactful, and it does what Star Wars does best, is make you invested in the outcome of these characters, right? I mean, every property, you have your favorites, but even then you care about all the side characters. And this is a family we get to watch the whole time through 16 episodes and how they develop, where they get to, and the sad conclusion.
You're exactly right. Yep. You're exactly right. Star Wars is a family show. It's about families. We say that all the time, and this is no different. Found family is the same as a regular family, and Star Wars is about found family. And so that is what the Bad Batch is. We've been put with these characters for 2 whole seasons, a little bit of the Clone Wars. We've gotten to know them. We've gotten to grow with them. And there's a big, big part of us that is very sad about the results of these episodes. I mean, this was a devastating final episode to this season. It was really rough. It had an Empire Strikes Back feel. It was kind of hopeless. We don't know where it's going to go from here. And it was really, really hard, really devastating to watch, but it was really, really good TV. And anyone who says that animation isn't the same as live action media or it doesn't have the same impact, I would say you just got to watch that episode of Bad Batch to know that that's not true, that you can feel for these animated characters the exact same way that you can feel for the live action characters on screen.
Well, and this is, Omega's a child. She's probably a tad bit older than my daughter in real life. And to see that what she's going through and what she's capable of and how she grows in this first season and this season, it's interesting to see. We don't get to, I guess, Baby Yoda, but he doesn't, or Baby Yoda, slap me across the face, Carter. We need to have like a jar for putting it, say every time we say Baby Yoda. Right. We have Grogu who is a little child, but he doesn't interact. He doesn't speak. He doesn't reason with the other characters. He's, a family coming into his element as a very young child would be. Omega is a preteen, right? Yep. And so she's got very opinionated. Mm-hmm. She's a clone, so she has a lot of training. She's very
you'll
strong.
Have a preteen daughter soon anyway. So
don't get me started. But it's they did a good job capturing her, and I could stop me from talking.
Omega is the audience through the whole show. I mean, we get to know the Batch through her eyes. You really feel for Omega. She's the most emotional character because she's a child, and you get to see, there's even in the last episode some really cool shots where you're literally seeing through her eyes, and it is really, really neat to see. So let's jump right into these episodes. Let's start talking about them. So the first episode of the bunch, episode 13, was called Pabu. And this is the one that people said was filler, would say was filler. And we're not going to dwell on this episode long. First thing I'll say is probably the most gorgeous episode of Star Wars animation we've ever seen. On this beautifully lit island, on this little peaceful mountain, basically juxtaposed with the evil mountain of Mount Tantus.
Yeah.
But Pabu is just this, it's on an island planet, much like Scarif. It's surrounded by water. The plot of the show is about, preparing for tsunamis, which is an important message, I assume, for people who live by the coast. We're 11 hours from the ocean.
Right. Is this an instance in Star Wars where we see a natural disaster occur? Most disasters we see, like the Death Star is blowing up.
Right.
There's some sort of military action or it's got persons involved. This is, for all we know, a natural disaster, right?
I think you're right. I mean, we see rainstorms on Camino, but they don't ever cause that much damage. I think you're right.
And this is such a rare thing in so much other science fiction. There's a lot of natural disasters. Mm-hmm. Stars doing this or that, mm-hmm. or nebula doing this or that, or an ion storm comes along. Right. Now that I say ion storm, I think there is a couple instances where we hear about this or that.
Right.
But like in other science fiction, an ion storm, you have to relocate your planet or something. It's uninhabitable. In Star Wars, your planet is glassed by the Empire.
Yeah.
Or the Empire does this, or the Empire does that, right?
Right. No, that's a really good point. I'm happy you brought that up. I mean, I'm sitting here racking my brain. I mean, the most natural, Star Wars is filled with monsters and creatures, but no natural disasters. Like you're saying, the most natural disaster-esque thing that we see on the screen is probably the Maw in Solo, and even then, they go out of their way to do that. It's more of a natural phenomenon and not a disaster because it just sits there.
Right.
And it's the black hole. And then, I don't know. I mean, we see in the Book of Boba Fett the sandstorm that he walks through, but that impacts
there's
a
not
tribe.
consequences, not large consequences.
So I think you're right. This may be the only
This
occurrence.
is probably a dichotomy of why Star Wars is the way it is.
There's got to be a couple Clone Wars episodes, by the way, that deal with that, but just little ones.
In so much Star Wars, or in Star Trek, one of my other favorites is tech babble. And their tech babble does exist in Star Wars, but it follows a very set and slated pattern, right? Whereas in Star Trek, they're making stuff up every other episode.
Right.
And so this is probably one of these subconscious things of what separates Star Trek from Star Wars and makes them so different in that there's not the same problems, but that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah, and lots of the conflicts in Star Trek are driven by the outside world. Very few conflicts in Star Wars are driven by the outside world. They're much more governments and people and things like that.
Nefarious actors, yep.
Exactly. So, yeah, great point. So,
this Pabu episode, what was the fan theory that people had of where Pabu was at?
Yeah, you had mentioned this, that a lot of people thought it was on Scarif, which, no confirmation that it's not. Pabu is certainly the name of the village, city, mountain that they're on. We have no idea where they might actually be. I don't know if they'll ever play that into it, but it being a fan theory is kind of cool. It's very sad that could be the case, but it's pretty cool.
So if you'll recall in the previous episodes, and if you listen to our last podcast, we mentioned that the Bad Batch had been betrayed by Sid. I don't know if that's the correct word, but they're on
the outs with her.
Yeah,
for
they're
sure.
on the outs with her. So this is at Pabu, especially after this disaster, where they're, these are all strong people and able to lend their hand in a very effective way.
Right.
And this is their first temptation to settle down and not be gallivanting around the galaxy to solve problems.
And this is my argument for why Pabu was not a filler episode, because it gave us important stakes and it showed us the alternate life that the Batch could have. Because with Sid, we're rooting for the Batch to be in the conflict. We want them to get involved because being with Sid was boring. Being with Sid was on random missions, and being with Sid, they weren't safe. And we're just like, if you're not going to be safe with Sid in the first place, you should just be taking the fight to the Empire anyway, instead of sitting around, doing whatever you're doing for Sid. But on Pabu, they make it very clear that it is off the Empire's radar, that no one knows where Pabu is, that this is why it probably isn't Scarif, but that they give us stakes because the guys could totally settle down there and live without war, which is what Hunter explicitly says he wishes in just a few episodes before
Right.
that.
And this is, and Pabu is an example outside of natural disasters, is a pretty much idyllic lifestyle. There's a limited population. There's no conflict, if any. You earn your keep and you provide to your neighbor.
Yep.
You know, it sounds really cool.
Right. Yeah, it's this nice community. The batch would, like you said, fit in really well there. They had services to offer these people. It was you just watching the Pabu episode, I think, and why it's not filler is because it really, really gave you a good look into how the clones and how the batch specifically could adapt to this lifestyle and start a home, and Omega could have a normal life.
And in episode 16, there's something we'll touch on there that gives further insight into that.
Yes. But for episode 14, the next episode, this one was, if Pabu was filler, like someone would say, not me, but like somebody may say, the next one cannot be said that. It opens up with a clone strike force liberating other clones who have dared to speak out against the Empire from, I'll say, again, we talk about this all the time, I'm not going to shut up about it, an amazing-looking Gozanti cruiser. The art here, the animation is so good. I don't know how much they're spending on this show. I don't know what the budget is for the animation, but it has got to be through the roof.
You could tell the people working on this are very passionate about it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they took the Gozanti art out of Mandalorian and adapted it to fit this, like put a different skin or shade on it.
It looks that good. You're right. And because, look, they've had 10 seasons working with this animation style to hone their craft. They've gotten it down. I mean, when you look at big sweeping scapes of like Coruscant or other planets, you really start to not be able to see the line blur between the prequels CGI and this level of CGI for this cartoon. I mean, it starts to look the same because the cartoon looks that good.
Yeah, so phenomenal.
So we see the clone strike force liberate the Gozanti cruiser. They liberate the clones. It's a really, really cool action sequence. They just take care of everyone on the ship. They're going to take an Imperial officer hostage to question him, but he kills himself, like we've seen many a time in the Bad Batch lately, and like we saw in Mando, where they use basically the cyanide pill, but it's an electric shock in their mouth.
Yeah, that's scary to think that that's shown on a quote-unquote kid show.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, this episode also had Crosshair escaping from a prison, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's super cool. I mean, he tries to escape from Mount Tantus. He's being not attacked, but he's being drugged and interrogated by an interrogator ball droid that we see in A New Hope. It gives us a glimpse into what Leia suffered, because, we never actually see her in the torture room, but Crosshair is writhing on the table. He's clearly in a lot of pain. It's amazing that Leia even endured this. It's a testament to her force sensitivity and her just willpower. Crosshair also doesn't break. And he gets out, he kills some of the guards, he stuns
they're torturing him to find
doctor.
out where Omega is.
Yes, that's important.
Find out where Bad Batch is.
Because they know that that's the key to getting Nala Se to work for them, to get Nala Se to work on their cloning technology for them.
Right. And so the doofus stormtroopers leave a gun within his reach.
Yeah.
And Crosshair snatches it, shoots the stormtroopers, and disables the what would her title be?
Dr. Amari was her name.
Dr. Amari.
And so just the doctor administering Crosshair, which we have a lot to talk about her here in a little while.
Yeah. And so he goes in and sends out a distress call, message 88 or something.
Yeah, I think it is Plan 88. And
Plan
he
88.
lets the Bad Batch know that they're being hunted by the Empire. And a little bit before this, I just want to point out we have Senator Chuchi in the Martez sisters' garage. She is keeping clones. All of the liberating clones are working out of that base. She's making sure they're okay. That is a big no-no, and I think Chuchi is absolutely... I have in my notes, Chuchi's going to jail / die. I actually just think she's going to die. There's no way they're sending her to jail and making a martyr of her. They're just going to, sweep her under the rug all quickly. But back to Crosshair, we see his escape plan get foiled because they lock him in a room and release this poisonous gas. And Dr. Hemlock struts in without any kind of rebreather on or anything. And he says he's built up an immunity to this poison he's created. And this is an allusion to his name. Hemlock is poison. That's what it means in the English language. And so Hemlock developing this poison is absolutely going to come into play again. It has to be next season. I thought it'd come into play this season, but it didn't. So it'll have to be next season.
Yeah, we're going to see definitely a lot of interaction with a lot more clones. We'll get into that.
Right. The last bit of this episode leads us into the next episode with Hemlock having a conversation with Tarkin about his science initiative and about the summit coming up. And so the next episode is titled The Summit, and we get to see the summit on screen.
Yeah, this one was a lot of fun. We got to go to Eriadu, which is Tarkin's home planet.
Which we've never seen before in any visual media. We've only seen it mentioned in books and things like that. The Tarkin novel, which we both really liked, written by James Luceno, details his planet in detail, and it is really cool to finally get to see it.
Yeah, and so this region is a mountainous region. It reminds me of like Swiss Alps or something like that.
Right,
I don't know.
Right. And so Tarkin's got a base there in Eriadu. It's basically the Teen Titans fortress because it's this giant T. I mean, it's not exactly a T. It doesn't look exactly like that, but you can definitely see it. And so it's T for Tarkin. He's like a supervillain right here, where he has this base shaped in his name.
The clones are going there for what reason? To
track Hemlock.
To track Hemlock.
Because
they want to rescue Crosshair.
Exactly. Because of Crosshair's message, they did not get where he was being held or anything. The only information they could glean was Dr. Hemlock is a guy at Mount Tantus, and they know he's going to Eriadu.
Echo helps him figure that out. He's back with the batch at this point.
Yes, exactly. Important information because Echo was part of the clone strike force in the last episode. So they continue to go. They go to Eriadu. The team does. They leave Pabu, and then there's.
Oh, this is such an important part.
Yeah. Well, you go ahead. You tell.
Yeah. So, what's her name? What's the character's name? Not Sid.
Yeah, Fee.
Fee. And it's voiced by, gosh, I should know this, Wanda Sykes. She has a very distinct voice. You should recognize it from a lot of work she does. There is a love interest there. And it hit me, it punched me in the face because she's called him Brown Eyes the whole time. It's this like kind of adversarial thing where she's hinting at him and he's not picking it up. He's a nerd, right?
Right. He isn't getting it.
I mean, even then, so like Omega says goodbye to Fee, and Fee struts up to Tech, and it's like basically like be safe, and in her way tell him like you need to come back alive. I'm going to miss you, right? And Tech is just like not saying anything. But yeah, this speaks to the relationship that obviously Tech wasn't aware of, but should have been, or maybe he is, and he's just playing coy, right? But this is the anchor to Pabu that is drawing them to settle down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so clear that Fee and Tech have gotten invested into each other as a couple, more or less. We've spent a lot of time with Tech this season. I mean, his character got developed in a lot of the episodes that people called filler, that we called filler, that I think when you take the season as a whole, our perspective is going to change on some of those. It's going to stay the same on some of them, but on a lot of them, I think our perspective will change, and we now see how important Tech's character development was for a little bit later. And so you're right, they leave Pabu. Fee wants them to come back in one piece, and then we get some real Episode 4, A New Hope boardroom scenes. If you like the ISB stuff in Andor, this is your jam. I'm telling you right now, this part was the part that you wanted to see. And it is the summit, is what it is.
Yeah, who was there?
It was a couple of guys who we've seen before, and I should know their names. One was in the Clone Wars only. The other appeared in Rogue One. They were just some officers under Tarkin, but the main guy, the main cameo there's a big day for Star Wars cameos. Mando episode, we talked a lot about a cameo that showed up over there. Now, this is director Orson Krennic from Rogue One has shown up in this episode, and he looks way younger. He's clearly way younger, and they talk about Project
Operation
Stardust. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool. It was a good nod. I mean, it was really well done. I had predicted on our Twitter that this was going to be a giant gathering of Imperial scientists, Thrawn's Defender Initiative, his Operation Stardust, Tag's projects, the Tarkin Initiative. It wasn't on that scale, but it was still good for us to see Tarkin working with other Imperial scientists developing all of this tech at once.
Yeah, and I love these scenes. And then, of course, you got Hemlock there talking. This is where we get the reveal of what he's up to.
Right.
A clone thing that it sounded to me like they want to make a docile population with some sort of cloning technology.
Yes, they're experimenting on clones. They're using the clones for this. Hemlock explicitly states this. He's working on what the Emperor wants. So we can only speculate that probably means what we got in The Rise of Skywalker with Palpatine cloning himself. This show, Mando, are further building on that. But then there's an even better line of dialogue just 1 or 2 lines later. And Tarkin specifically name drops the clone uprising and the threat of a clone uprising that we have been speculating at, that many people have been speculating at for a long time, that the next season or the next iteration could be this clone fight taken up against the Empire. It could be Clone Wars version 2. Like, maybe that's why Clone Wars is plural in the first place, is because this is the next Clone War, which would obviously just be a small skirmish. Nowhere near compared to the Clone Wars set between the prequels. But this could still be something that we finally got lip service paid to from Tarkin.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good idea.
And so we continue to move through the headquarters. We continue to move through Tarkin's base. The batch is in there. They got through the rail car. They got into his base. And they are like, the security cameras are disabled. This is kind of weird. They keep going on. Tech's like, we need to get out of here. Then they run into 2 stormtroopers. But stormtroopers put their hands up, and they're, whoa, whoa, whoa. And lo and behold, who is it? What rebel cell is active during this time that this could be, that this guy has shown up in like 12 things?
It's a young Saw Gerrera.
Exactly.
And he looks like ready to kick some butt, man. He's cool looking.
Yeah, he looks like he did in the Clone Wars. He looks like he did in Bad Batch Season 1. He's there in Stormtrooper gear. He and his partners are planting explosives all over this base. They're ready to blow it sky high and get rid of the Imperial leadership that's there. And it is Saw's mission. That's all he cares about. We all know about Saw. He develops paranoia. He is really, really about taking it to the Empire. It's his way or the highway from the very beginning. And we can already see this in these episodes when he's like, he doesn't care about their mission. He doesn't care about the fact that he could get intel out of this leadership. He doesn't care that the leadership is going to refill their roles really quickly. All he wants to do is take it to the Empire as fast as possible, and that's what they do right here.
It's a decapitation strike is what he's after.
Right, but he doesn't understand that if he cuts that head off, they're going to grow back immediately, and that's what Tech's trying to describe to him.
Hail Hydra.
And so, Saw and his partner plant their explosives. Then real stormtroopers show up, and they begin to be in a skirmish with these stormtroopers. They ditch the batch. The batch is in a fight with these stormtroopers, and now the base is alerted to their presence. And this part is, this is where everything hits the fan. Saw and his guys are able to get out of there. The batch now has to evacuate with their plan completely kaput.
Yeah, they escape on the tram that goes down the mountain, and this does not end well. They're in a firefight. There's other stormtroopers shooting at them from another car. 4 V-Wings get called into action, and they're just littering the whole thing with blaster fire. And the worst happens at this point. It's so bad.
It is. So Saw and his rebels escape. Then they blow the base up, which detonates everything but the command center. They just destroy a bunch of Imperial equipment, which on this scale, that doesn't matter at all. Like that is nothing to the Empire.
Right.
And so they really just failed. I mean, Saw really loused this whole thing up. The Batch have to escape on the rail car. They get in a firefight in an opposing rail car with some stormtroopers, and then they are stuck out there on the line on a rail car, and that's the end of the penultimate episode. That's the end of episode 15 for us, the summit. So we then roll into the finale episode, Plan 99, and we have absolutely no idea why it's called that at the beginning of this episode, and we are soon going to figure it out.
Yeah, and so starts off exactly where we left off, on the rail car. Like I said, the V-Wings are called in, stormtroopers shooting at them. It's very tough. One of the rear rail car, as perspective from the mountain, is blown off the track, I guess you'd say, and Tech is over there. He's dangling from this rail car.
Right, from his grappling hook.
From his
rope.
grappling hook, lariat, however you want to call it. And so he's struggling to get up. Wrecker's trying to figure out a way to get down there and get him. Omega's like, they're all being shot at. The V-Wings are in close.
And this is so tense. I mean, it is a tense scene. You were like, how are they going to get out of this?
I was on the edge of my seat.
I mean, Tech is dangling there. The rail car is tipping. There's no clear way out at all. Tech was just trying to get the rail car online, and now it can't even go because it's disconnected from the rails.
Yeah,
and
the rail car that's knocked off the track is pulling down the gear that would engage with the rail.
Right.
And so they can't go forward.
Yeah, and anytime they shift their weight.
Tech was out to re-engage power. The Empire shut the power. So
Yes.
he hacked the system to re-engage power, and now he's stranded hanging at the end of his lariat there.
Yeah. And so then Tech says he's going to have to climb. And I only took note of this because Andor and because Rogue One and all of these scenes where we have climb, and it's just this like clear. I don't know if it's a clear homage to that. I don't know if it's actually connected, but we just seen this theme a lot with rebel groups like the Bad Batch, like Andor, like Rogue One. There is just this, climb line, and it means a lot to Star Wars fans now. So I thought it was important to point out that they also used it here.
Yep. And so he says, very unfortunately, because the V-Wings are pressing in, and they've already done a couple passes. It's why they're in the state that they're in, and it's not looking good. So he says, Plan 99. And all the other Bad Batch, except for Omega, know exactly what that means. And so they're like, no, get back up here. And he says, when have we ever followed orders? Gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching. He shoots the coupler, and the rail car falls into an abyss.
Plummets. I mean, thousands and thousands of feet. Tech falls. He is just, he's dead. Tech is, look, you didn't see him die on screen. You never know for sure if he's dead.
It's a kid show.
This is a fall. I would not be pleased if they brought Tech back after this, because this is a fall. His sacrifice was really important right here. And Colin, did you note why it was called Plan 99?
No.
Because of Clone 99, who sacrificed himself during the Siege of Kamino. Bad Batch is Clone Force 99, named after him, so it's a sacrifice plan, the same way that 99 sacrificed himself on Kamino. Good homage to the Clone Wars right there, good in-universe homage to that clone. But it was really, it hit you like a ton of bricks watching Tech die like that.
A ton of bricks literally hits them. The rail car is out of control, careens down into the base station there, and they pick themselves up and go into the forest and retreat, I guess, back to their ship.
Yes, and so Omega gets out of the rail car, and she's staggered, and she can't walk.
She's injured at this point.
And this is the scene that I was talking about at the beginning, where we get, from her perspective, she tries to stand up, she wants to go after Tech, and then she collapses. And she's a kid, man. This is a visceral scene. She is a kid in a war zone. She is hurt. She has just lost one of her brothers, a father figure in her life. She is emotionally distraught. She is physically injured. And then we get to see from her eyes the Batch carrying her back to the ship. Omega, we gotta go. Are you okay? And it's all shots from her perspective. Blaster fire. And it's cool, man. I really, really enjoyed these scenes. The way they directed this episode, it really hit for me, this part. I thought it was great.
Yeah, visceral is an understatement here. I mean, it's a firefight all the way back to the ship with Wrecker carrying her, Hunter and Echo in full retreat. And oh my gosh, you're right. These really hit home. It's tough.
It is. And then she wakes up back on Ord Mantell because AZ-1, the droid that works on clones, is still on Ord Mantell. And he's the only one that has any medical knowledge about clones. I mean, obviously they're just people, but they want the best for Omega because they want her to live.
Yeah,
and so
she's a
she wakes
child.
up in Ord Mantell, and you immediately, as the viewer, are like, why are you there?
Yeah, Pabu, God.
Yeah, but they have to have AZ-1, and so she wakes up, she can't remember anything, and then it hits her like a ton of bricks. Tech is dead, and she is, we have to go back, we have got to go back and get Tech, and the Batch knows that that's futile. Tech is dead.
Right, yeah, that optimism of a child, right? Can't get over it. And I mean, and even me, you're sitting there watching him fall. I want him to be alive. I don't know how. I mean, obviously that's not true, but facts are facts.
Yeah, exactly. It's really tough. This is a hard episode to watch, but it's a good episode of TV because it makes you feel. I mean, we don't want happy-go-lucky all the time. There'd be no conflict. So it's important for our characters to fail like this and for episodes to be heavy and weighty like this and for us to have to grapple with these tough issues. And so it's a really, really good episode, but it's not over yet because we're back on Ord Mantell and Wrecker is sitting at the bar.
He's got a neck brace on.
Yeah, he's
Hunter's,
hurt. They're
Hunter's
all hurt.
covered in bandages.
They're trying to recover back at Sid's place, and Sid tries to serve Wrecker a drink. He says that's not going to help. And then
she's
Sid's
being
acting
really
weird.
shifty.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And why is she acting shifty?
Because I think, 3 at this point in time, Star Destroyers, no, they're not Star Destroyers.
Venator class.
Venator class Star Destroyers show up. Dr. Hemlock and an absolute gobs of
Tons
stormtroopers.
of and clone commandos.
Clone commandos
Yeah.
and stormtroopers show
Both.
up to Sid sold them out.
Yeah.
No
Point
easy way to
blank.
sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
She's got to look out for her own self. I mean, that's all she is. She's a gangster. She's scum
She's
and
awful.
villainy.
Gosh, she's awful.
And she sold him out for relatively little amount of credits.
And this was telegraphed to us the whole time. We knew this was coming, but it doesn't sting any less, especially for Omega. Sid sells him out. I hate that they even had to go back to Ord Mantell, and it's just the Batch gets captured. Wrecker's captured immediately. He's caught off guard.
This was such a cool scene. It shows him get hit by a stun bolt, and he just shrugs it off like nothing. It's
Right.
awesome.
It is cool. He's fighting through it. It's really good. And so he gets captured, and then Hemlock is trying to negotiate with Hunter. After Hunter has sent Omega on her way, she's supposed to escape with AZ-1. And Hunter and Hemlock are sitting. It's Hunter versus the world right here. I mean, it's Hunter versus like 8 clone commandos and Hemlock. They've all got their guns trained on him
Echo's
and
on
Wrecker.
the Marauder at this point, holding down the fort.
Right.
And-
And Hemlock rubs Tech's death in their face.
Omega sees it. She's not happy. She had gone back. She's like, I can't leave them behind. I can't just escape. She was meant to go back and see Echo on the Marauder, and she sees this standoff between Dr. Hemlock and Hunter, and she realizes that I'm not going to be able to do anything here, and reluctantly leaves.
Yes, and it's rough to see. We see Hunter get captured, and Hemlock is telling Hunter they can have their freedom. They just need to turn over Omega, and we know that's not true. We know that as soon as they turn over Omega, they're still going to arrest him. They're still going to keep him, but they don't go willingly. They don't give up Omega for obvious reasons. So they do go willingly. My mistake, but they don't give up Omega, and then we find Omega out in the street, trying to stop them. It's her versus the world now. It's Wrecker in cuffs, Hunter in cuffs. She's got her bow pulled, ready to shoot Dr. Hemlock, but that's just going to get her brothers killed.
She shot at him a couple of times.
Yeah.
But Echo comes in and takes over an ATST and starts.
Not an ATST. I wrote this in my notes. It's not. We don't know what it is, but it's a new kind of walker. It's something we haven't seen before.
Oh, cool.
It's not the one from Rebels, the ATTP.
It's bigger, isn't it?
It's bigger, yeah, and it's got a weird, different frame. Yeah, it's like a new thing. I don't know what it is. It might be an ATST prototype, but if whenever you take a look at the episode, you'll see it. Somehow it's different. But you're right. Echo takes it over.
And this disrupts everything. Hunter and Wrecker break free, and they're trying to rescue Omega. It's just a big row right here. But Omega gets captured.
Yeah. Yep. And she's stunned, but this gives Echo time to come in with the ATST. Hunter and Wrecker break loose, and then they just make short work of the clone commandos. I mean, it's a little tougher than them fighting stormtroopers, but not by much. And they've got, the Empire has Omega, but the batch is out. And they obviously are going to feel super guilty. The plan was not to take the batch to Mount Tantus. The plan was to give the batch over to Tarkin for questioning and take Omega to Mount Tantus. And so they were split up, and now the batch has to return to the Marauder to try and save Omega, who was just loaded onto a transport to be taken to Mount Tantus.
Yeah, and they lose her.
Yeah.
They have no idea where she is. I mean, she's just gone.
Yeah, no clue. Like, they know that they've lost her. They're limping away. They barely escape with their lives. And as soon as they get to hyperspace, all they can talk about, with obvious reasons, is that they lost their sister. They lost the child in their care. And they don't know what to do. And it is, like we said, super full of defeat in this moment. Because then we see Omega landed on Mount Tantus and presented to Nala Se. And they say, if you don't work for us, Nala Se, anything that you do wrong, we're going to do to Omega. And it's enough for, obviously, Nala Se to get to work. And she says what the Emperor wants is impossible, that they can't do. And we don't know because of the show what the Emperor wants. We can infer they're talking about strand casting.
Right.
But she says, I can't do that. And Hemlock does not care. He just says, make it possible.
Yeah. And these scenes, I mean, so dark and gritty, even compared to the last time we were at this locale, right? And it's just got this tinge on it. Omega's being led into a room with a bunch of other clones who are sedated on a table.
Strapped to tables. I mean, it's dark. It's just dark to parade this kid into this room.
Yeah. And like it's guarded. There's clone commandos. There's clones in probably not back to tanks, stasis tanks or something like that.
Right.
And Crosshair is sedated, strapped to a table. Mm-hmm. And she approaches him. It's like, oh my gosh,
She's trying to communicate with him. He's not waking up. He's just laying there. He can't respond. And then Dr. Amari walks back into the room and sees Omega getting reacquainted with Crosshair. And then, she introduces herself. And Omega just wants to know what's happening to Crosshair. And Dr. Amari is just having this conversation in her Kiwi accent with Omega, who has a Kiwi accent. And people have been pointing out the whole time, Dr. Amari has a Kiwi accent, just like all the clones. And then we get a reveal that, frankly, I don't think many people were predicting, that I don't think we were predicting.
Well, she's wearing glasses the whole time. It's totally obscured.
Right.
And you have to look close anyway, but
Dr. Amari is also a clone. She calls herself Omega's sister. We don't know of any female clones other than Omega. We don't know of any adult female clones at all. And so this is a total shock to us, the viewers.
Right. There's some sort of betrayal between Dr. Omari and Nala Se, because Dr. Omari says, you trust the Kaminoan, but not me.
Right.
And Omega's like, what do you mean? And Dr. Omega says, I don't know you. Dr. Omari leans down, takes off her augmented reality glasses, and says, you might know me better than you think. I'm your sister. Or we're sisters.
Yeah.
And you have to look close. Omega has blonde hair, yada, yada. But she's a clone, too.
Yeah, you can tell with the glasses off. I mean, the features are there. She's got the Jango Fett look. The gender-swapped Jango Fett look. And so it's... I mean, again, no one was predicting this. This is a crazy way to end a season, because this kind of cliffhanger was not telegraphed in any way. This kind of cliffhanger we're about to have to wait a whole year for. We haven't even gotten season 3 announced yet. I'm sure they're going to announce that Celebration, but as for now, we technically don't know if we're going to get a season 3. And it gives us no time to process this new information. Omega doesn't process this new information. It's like completely just nothing. I mean, we don't have any chance at figuring this out. And I was stupefied at the end of this.
Yeah, and so the final scenes are, what is this mountain called?
Mount Tantus on the planet Wayland.
Mount Tantus on planet Wayland, and I think it draw. I'm going to look into this a little bit, and I'll post something on our Instagram. I think it's just like we saw previously in The Mandalorian, of the ships flying into the sunset, and it's an Apocalypse Now homage. And we mentioned in the Bad Batch, it looks like something out of Alien. Well, Wayland Corporation, I think, looks a lot like this, and it might be something that is an homage to Blade Runner somehow.
Right. You had mentioned that before. Which the Wayland Corporation also appears in the Alien movies, correct?
That's right. Wayland Yutani.
Yeah.
And they're a giant mega corporation that's evil.
And so this scene with the pan out of Mount Tantus, I mean, it was crazy. I don't disagree with the choice. This was a good season of Bad Batch. I enjoyed the whole thing. I thought that there were low points like we talked about, but there were really high points. The Crosshair-centric episodes were amazing. A lot of these Bad Batch-centric episodes were amazing. Getting to see the clones in action, getting to see the early Empire and how it's taking form and how the government's working, and all the scenes on Coruscant were really cool. But this end just hits you. You got Tech's death, you got Omega taken away, now you have this big reveal. All of this is just, boom, dropped on our laps, and it leaves you with a sense of hopelessness, not even the same kind of hopelessness that The Empire Strikes Back left people with. Because The Empire Strikes Back, we had time with Luke and Leia to grapple with what just happened. It was like 20 minutes. It wasn't very long, but Luke got to contend with Vader being his father. Leia got to deal a little bit with Han being frozen in carbonite and taken away. Like, we had some time to process this with the characters. We don't have any time to process any of the tragedy with the characters.
Yeah, it's just, you got to roll with the punches almost.
Yeah.
I mean, these are soldiers, right? And this is Clone Force 99. They're a little bit special. So, I mean, obviously they have their own TV show. So their deaths are more meaningful. But and not to say that your run-of-the-mill soldier's death isn't meaningful, but like from a stormtrooper perspective, their buddies die all the time. They're just swatted like flies. Right. Nobody cares about them. But, there's been fan fictions out there from a line stormtrooper's perspective, and it's the same thing. It's not some happy-go-lucky.
Right.
And I mean, my bad friend died, I guess, whatever.
Right. We see on screen clones dying throughout the Clone Wars show. I mean, it's not, you don't feel them until they have a name. And that's always the joke, is until a clone has a name, you don't feel it. But as soon as they get a name, you're like, oh, this person's going to die, or this person's going to be this, or this person's going to be this. And it's tough seeing a Bad Batch member die like that. But I will say, I do hope it's permanent. I don't want them to bring Tech back. I think that would just diminish the weight of his sacrifice right there.
So what I think is the whole Bad Batch, and we're obviously going to get one more season, but the Empire doesn't like clones, and Dr. Hemlock has a solution to deal with the clones, and they want to use them for testing. They're just property. It's not. I mean, the Empire does away with them. We know that, right? And so they're replaced by stormtroopers. I think, there's a macro perspective that we just know inherently as Star Wars fans or viewers. The Clone Wars happened, and then the Empire comes along and the clones go away. This is that story, but we're seeing it. We wouldn't be able to understand or give due diligence to that story as a whole. If it's,
right.
If it's this one character here who gets smuggled or, gets broken off of a ship, and you got this Senator Chuchi over here talking about this or that, it would be this disjointed story. You need, for this story to be effective to us as the viewer, you have to have heroes. The Bad Batch is the heroes. So whereas what happens to the clones for a macro of what we already know, the same thing happens to Clone Force 99 as a micro, and they lose people, and then we're at this end stage of what happens to the clones.
Right. That's perfectly said. Could not have said it better myself. And it's a story we didn't know we wanted. It's a story we didn't know we needed.
It's a story that Filoni, it was started in the Clone Wars,
right?
And he is finishing this story that we want to see.
Right. And I think a lot of people forget this. it is really exciting to see. You know, Mandalorian, that was invented by Jon Favreau. The sequels were invented by Disney and J.J. Abrams and their team. Kenobi, Boba Fett, Andor. These are all, you know, they are based on scenes and stories and characters that George Lucas created. But they are different stories. But The Bad Batch is literally a George Lucas creation. He made The Bad Batch when he was working on the Clone Wars. He came up with the idea. He was going to deliver the story on Cartoon Network if it hadn't gotten canceled. Like, this was George's thing. So it's cool for us to get to see a continuation of a George Lucas product like this in a show that is, you know, working with Dave Filoni and just a really still an homage to what George did.
Yeah. I had fun watching this whole season. I can't wait for the next season. I'm kind of sad I'm not going to get to see Tech. He was probably one of my favorite ones out of the clones. Because he had provided so much value. He was in a lot of these episodes. I think in one of our HoloNet news, we talked about his action figure that came out. I kind of want to go buy that now.
I know,
its value went up a little bit today.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It was an exciting season. I agree with you. I loved season 1. I liked season 2. I'm excited to see where we head with season 3. I really want to know what the Batch are going to be doing next, and they left us with a lot of questions here that we're going to have to get answered, and so it's really, really exciting. I'm crossing my fingers that we get the announcement at Celebration. But speaking of Celebration, it's going to have a lot of news. We don't have any Celebration news to talk about right now because it's coming up in just a week and a half. We'll have one more podcast episode before Celebration comes out, and we do our big Celebration news episode. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about the news that has come out this week in our HoloNet news segment.
You made the HoloNet.
So our first piece of news is a little bit of, it's the last in a batch of leaks and news that all kind of came out around the same time about Lucasfilm and about internal directives and disputes and the big shakeup around Bob Iger coming back in as CEO. And that is that there's a rumor, it's pretty credible, from a credible source, that Disney has ordered Lucasfilm to focus only on Star Wars. They developed the Willow TV show. It ran for one season. People liked it. I don't know if it was huge. I didn't see it, but I know that people enjoyed it. They are not doing a season 2. They were planning on doing an Indiana Jones TV show spinoff called Ravenwood about Abner Ravenwood. That's no longer in production because Disney has said Lucasfilm needs to get their chickens or their hens in a row, their eggs in a row, their ducks in a basket, whatever the analogy is, and they need to get everything going and chugging along with Star Wars.
Yeah, that's exhilarating. I mean, I heard a lot of different stuff about the Willow thing. I haven't watched it yet. I really liked Willow. I don't think Indiana Jones needs any kind of TV show.
Look, I'm a massive Indiana Jones fan. Indiana Jones The Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite film. I had an indie-themed birthday party when I was 11.
That's awesome.
Huge indie guy. Probably bigger than Star Wars. I love Indiana Jones. I didn't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I'm looking forward to the 5th movie. I think it's going to be good. I'm hopeful. But I agree with you. The Indiana Jones universe does not need a lot of input. Like it's really good, limited to the movies and the young indie TV show. I don't want a whole lot of extra stuff in that universe. Right. I want it to stay isolated.
Right, and then focusing on Star Wars is going to really get down to the nitty gritty on making a quality product.
Right, and well, as a Willow fan, I think you'd be happy to at least hear this news that it wasn't Willow's fault that it got canceled. That it got canceled because Lucasfilm was ordered to focus on Star Wars. It was Star Wars' fault that Willow got canceled. That the new Willow show wasn't what caused this. And they said as much before this news came out. When they canceled Willow, they were like, we don't know if we're making a season 2. They did not tell us you have to get rid of this show, but we wanted to release the actors so they could work on other projects because we can't just hold them on a show that isn't in production yet. And so I would think that Willow fans would be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a solace, right?
Right, exactly. So our next little bit of piece of news is also pretty interesting. It's about the reprinting of some essential Legends books. There's a lot of EU content out there. It is beloved. People love the EU. I love the EU. I've got a huge bookshelf full of EU books. And they've been doing, over the last few years, reprints of Legends material in new books. They're called the Essentials Collection, and it's, supposed to be the best of Legends. And so they're saying they're going to release iJedi, which was super popular, Republic Commando True Colors, which ties in. It doesn't tie into Bad Batch, but it shows a lot of where all the Bad Batch stuff was inspired by. The Courtship of Princess Leia, which was not super well received, but is a backbone of Legends content. And then the Old Republic Fatal Alliance, which is a continuation of the Old Republic book series. And so I'm jazzed about it. People are super excited. This is wave 8 of these books coming out.
Are we going to pick any of those up and review any of them?
Yeah, we really should. We should take a look at them. I mean, we really do need to get into our backlog. Any of these books or any Legends books?
Any of those.
Well, we need to check them out. We need to, we have a book club on our Patreon. And so we need to talk to the members of our Patreon who are in this book club and talk about, do we want to work on some Legends content? Do we want to do the canon stuff? Where do we want to go alongside? I know we're going to get that rolling pretty soon. And so if you're excited about any of these upcoming Star Wars books or any of these Essential Legends releases, then, come join our book club, go to our Patreon, and find the tiers that align with the book club, choose the one that you want, and then let's join it and let's talk about these books.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with a lot of different Star Wars books. It really lets you experience, like, we haven't talked about Lando Calrissian in a long time, but the last time we did was that book. What was the book we read?
The Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher.
Yeah, that was great.
It was a phenomenal. I mean, I think it's one of the best canon books that they've written, and it was a really good story about Luke and Lando, a pair that you don't see very often.
Yeah, it
was really good, and so we're excited to keep it rolling with these Star Wars books. The last little bit of news here, 1, I think, is the most exciting piece, and 2, we don't give spoiler warnings on our show because our show is an after show. You should have seen the content we're talking about. I will give a spoiler warning about this piece of news because it is a leak about an upcoming TV show. It's kind of a big one.
Yeah.
And so this is about Andor. And recently, Cassian and Mon Mothma were spotted in Spain, and it was during filming on location in Spain, and their characters were running together. And so they didn't meet in season 1 at all. So our indication is they're going to meet in season 2, and they were on the run. It looks like they're escaping somewhere. So, what do we think this is about?
That's super interesting, and we want to know, I mean, there's video of this. Some bystander took it.
Right, exactly.
Everyone, it's a leak, but it's not some rumor that you heard somewhere that somebody could have made up.
Yeah.
There's video of this occurring. So lots of speculation abound about this going on.
Mm-hmm.
I got excited because... isn't there some tie back to Rebels on this?
Yeah, so in Rebels season 2, I believe, I think it could be season 3, but I think it's season 2. Mon Mothma uses the Ghost Crew to escape Coruscant after she comes out in a huge hard stance against the Empire. She says no more. It's the Gorman Massacre is what it is, and she makes a reference to the Gorman Front in Andor. It's mentioned a couple times, and so. This is what Mon Mothma finally goes on the run for, outspoken, becomes the leader of the Alliance, and it's all because of this right here. And so I think, just wild speculation, is Andor is going to hand her off to the Ghost Crew.
Wouldn't that be something?
I know, man. I mean, we saw Zeb in Mando. We just saw him. We know the Ghost Crew's coming in Ahsoka. I don't see why they wouldn't get those actors, get those art products ready to go for Andor, put them in there. I don't think that'd be super out of place. I mean, obviously, the vibe and tone of Rebels is much different than Andor, but they can take those characters and put them into a more serious situation. And so I really, really think that a Cassian handoff to the Ghost Crew, even if it's just Cassian runs her up to, I don't remember exactly. I need to go rewatch this Rebels episode, but Cassian hands her off to the Ghost ship or something like that would be perfect. Yeah. I think it'd be awesome.
So the Spectres, the Ghost Crew, picking up Mon Mothma. You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. So that wraps up our HoloNet news. Quick HoloNet news segment, but some exciting news. We're really excited to talk about all that. Now, Colin, let's get into our Star Wars moment of the week.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, Colin, what is your Star Wars moment of the week?
So I'm continuing spending time with my son watching these Star Wars shorts. There's 3 of them that they put out. I'm hoping they'll put out a couple more. But there's just
The Young Jedi Adventure
the
shorts.
Young Jedi Adventure shorts. Yeah, with my son. I'm trying to get my daughter to watch it. She's pretty focused on whatever she's doing, playing Roblox. So it's easy to get my son to come watch this because it's really geared toward him. My daughter, I think, is a little too old. I need to get her watching the Bad Batch. I think she'd connect with the Omega character. But it's really fun to get to spend time with my kids, watch them be engaged in cartoons. You know, I grew up watching cartoons. You grew up watching cartoons. And, you know, they love Bluey. They love Peppa Pig, a lot of these other little things. This is in the same vein as that, where there's little lessons. It's got Yoda. And so like you heard in our last episode, my son thinks it's Baby Yoda. So he's hooked, I think, a little bit. But we watched the second one, and, you know, he was just as enthralled with that one as he was the first one. And to be able to spend time with your kids watching Star Wars is just brings joy to your heart. You know, you get to experience it someday, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's always awesome to hear you talk about your kids and getting them into Star Wars, and I think it's got to be such a treat for any parent out there who's like that. My Star Wars moment of the week, there's been a theme for the past few months on Star Wars moments of the week, and that's because we're still getting into Legion. Star Wars Legion is awesome. Been enjoying it. We've played more and more games. We're getting it down. But I've been getting 3D Naboo terrain printed. Anyone who follows our Instagram page or our Facebook or is in the Discord kind of saw the progression of me making, Cassidy and I making the Naboo table that we're going to be playing on. I think it turned out really well, and now we're filling it with some Naboo terrain, slowly but surely. Hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll have a full table that looks like Naboo, and then we'll start on Navarro. And I am super, super excited to do it. It's been a lot of fun building that terrain, painting it, getting it printed, and so I'm really excited to get that done.
Yeah. Seeing these terrain tables come together it's a lot of effort. And when you get it done, though, it makes the game so thematic, so fun. And these models require line of sight. And so you can hide them behind things, and you can have them jump out and get after your enemy. And with this game, you get to play with the heroes that you want to play with. And they're bringing out more. We talked about Ahsoka is going to be in one of the next expansions. Moff Gideon is the most recent release for Empire. And they're always coming out with new ideas. And it's a really good way to connect you with your friends and make new friends. I think we just made a new one in our local community, too.
Yeah, you're right. I think we are. I think we were getting enough people together to start playing tournaments for Legion. It's going to be a lot of fun. You guys can check out stuff like that all over our Instagram page. With that, that's the end of our podcast. And we love when you guys engage with our Instagram, when you engage with our Twitter. It's a lot of fun. We appreciate the community that we're building here. You know, we just recorded 2 days ago a episode on Mando. If you watched the recent Mando episode and you were as stunned with the cameo as we were, go listen to that episode, but also come join our Facebook group, Star Wars Station Cantina. Come join our Discord, talk about it. There's a lot of talk about these latest episodes in our Discord and in our Facebook group. We're really, really excited. These episodes were awesome for Mando. This was a great Bad Batch. We're talking about Bad Batch there. We want you guys to continue to engage with us. DM us on Instagram, starwars.station. Come over to our Twitter, see the hot takes. DM us there at SW_station. We're always trying to grow, always engaging with the community. We love it. We're growing on all these platforms. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we got a lot in store. RPGs, conventions, merchandise maybe. We're working on... We got a lot of hands and a lot of baskets.
Yeah, exactly. We've got some T-shirts that we're cooking up. They're going to look super cool, hopefully. We've got stickers. Our Patreon is full of stuff. I mean, we've got a book club. We've got Legion games that you can have us play that will video. You can play video games with us. You can get a T-shirt. You can do all kinds of stuff on our Patreon page. We really want you guys to engage there. We'd really like for you guys to get involved. The lowest tier is $1. That gets you exclusive Discord access along with a sticker. And so if you come on over there, we'd love to, talk and hang out. But also, the biggest thing you can do for us is tell your friends about us. Colin's going to be streaming video games. He's going to be painting. He's doing a new Warhammer page alongside the Star Wars page. That's all can be found on our Twitch as well as various media places. Colin, tell them a little bit about the Twitch and about the Warhammer page.
Yeah, so Twitch is twitch.tv/station media. We're going to do all kinds of stuff there. I'm painting a bunch of Warhammer models and Legion models. So that's going to be up there here pretty soon. Come engage with me on there. Twitch is a real fun medium to talk to people. There's so many people on that.
I discovered that for the first time like 2 weeks ago. I streamed for the first time on Battlefront 2. We got like 3 viewers, but I had a great time doing it.
Yeah, it's so fun. And then as far as Warhammer, I think just the other day I posted a meme on there for the first time. But my focus is going to be on what's new in the game, what's some lore stuff that I really like, and continuing our insight from my perspective, our insightful commentary on Warhammer and what they're doing with the game. And these are just going to be I'm going to capitalize on the shorts. We're planning on posting on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and probably Facebook too.
Yeah,
on our own Warhammer Station media pages.
Yeah, absolutely. We really, really appreciate how you guys engage with that. We've got Harry Potter page, D&D page. We're just trying to grow a cool community surrounding all that. But our biggest and our baddest is our Star Wars page. So we appreciate you guys listening to our podcast. As we grow all the other pages, we want you guys to continue to grow this page along with us and to continue to grow this community. We want to build a cool, chill place for Star Wars fans, a positive place, but a place where everybody can voice their opinions about Star Wars, no matter what you think about it. We want to hear it. We want to talk about it. We want to dialogue. We don't want to shut down anyone. We just want to hear people's opinions about Star Wars. And so join our communities. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. We have loved doing this podcast. We continue to love doing this podcast. And the number one thing you can do for us is review this, rate us. We got Apple, Spotify, give us a like on YouTube. Any of those places that you can leave 5 stars is a massive help to us. That's how podcasts get through the algorithm. That's how we get more listeners. That's how we build this positive Star Wars community. Tell your friends about us. You're sitting around the water cooler talking about Mando. Talk to your friends about it. Talking about Bad Batch. Talk to your friends about it. We want to continue to grow this, and we appreciate all of you guys so much.
Now, if you're as sad as I am about tech dying, then tell your friend, commiserate with your friends, and say, man, you should listen to these guys.
Right, exactly. So thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate it. May the Force be with you, and stay wizard.